Episode 35, Winded City Countdown. I'm Scott Sterl with Ben Russo and Matt Urich, and we're about to go into a time machine with this one, gentlemen, because we are talking about the teams that
The best
real
teams.
the best teams to in since like 1990ish to do awesome and not have anything to show for it really. And we're gonna pay some homage to one Michael Jeffrey Jordan tonight, so that'll be fun to talk about. But this list is going to be really really fun in terms of talking about some of these old teams that we used to really enjoy watching. So again, I'm Scott Sterl, Ben Russo. I know he's excited. Matt Urich, he's excited. Gentlemen, any comments before we get this party started?
For me, real quick, this list honestly was like when we first said it, I was like, I don't know, I don't know how many guys I'm going to be able to, or how many teams I'm going to be able to name off the top of my head, and I think I had about 6 or 7 immediately. So this is going to be a fun list, a lot of interesting names and teams and situations on here.
For sure. Ben, any thoughts before we get started here?
Yeah, I think to me there's probably 4 or 5 that definitely should be on this list, and then I think your bottom half, 5 or 6 that are interchangeable with like the other 30 teams that I came up with. I think that's going to be the interesting part. Is there's a lot of teams that could have been on this list that didn't make it. So
Yeah, I think all of these teams will have an interesting, uh, just an interesting feel for all of us because there will be different reasons why they came up on the list and what have you. But let's start with number 10, which Ben, I know you're most excited about, and it's one that a lot of people I think don't think of
right.
because who would have thought? But the 1999 Jacksonville Jaguars. So let's talk about the 99 Jaguars here. They went 14-2. They lost in the AFC title game to the Tennessee Titans. So they finished their season essentially 15-3.
And 3.
And Ben, who were all three of those losses to?
This was the most interesting part. Is they lost 3 games that year to their division opponent, the Tennessee Titans. They lost week 3, 20-19. They lost week 16, 41-14, and then they lost obviously the AFC Championship game. It was a
33-14.
33-14, yeah. And this is after they destroyed the Miami Dolphins in the divisional round 62-7. This Jaguars team they were 6th in the NFL in scoring. They had the number 1 defense. Off air before we came on, just to kind of rattle off some of the names that were on this team. Obviously, this team was led by Mark Brunell. They had, I think at the time, I'd have to go back off the top of my head, though, I would say this was probably a top 2 or 3 wide receiver tandem with Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardle. And then they had James Stewart and a young Fred Taylor in the backfield for him. So a pretty potent offense. I know we did joke about it. Mark Brunell was like a cream of the crop quarterback, and he had 14 touchdowns in 15 games. So not necessarily the gaudy passing numbers we're used to seeing. But just going back to this defense, I mean, this defense had, you have to be really into football, but you had Kevin Hardy, you had Fernando Bryant, you had Tony Brackens, Donovan Darius, Aaron Beasley, Carnell Lake, Bryce Paup, Seth Payne, Ronaldo Wynn. I mean, this was an unbelievable team, and the fact that all 3 losses to the Titans, I mean, it was just I remember I remember this year specifically because I played, and I don't want to get too off topic, but I used to do a playoff fantasy football league. I think we still kind of do every once in a while, but we used to not do team quarterbacks, and I don't remember all the teams in there, but one of the last quarterback available sucked so bad that my uncle actually took Jay Fiedler, who was the backup, Mark Brunell, because Brunell would always get hurt and Fiedler would come in. Well, during that 62-7 route, they pulled Mark Brunell at halftime because they were up by so much, and Fiedler came in and ended up throwing for a few touchdowns. And I remember my dad got really pissed at my uncle because he called him a smartass for taking Jay Fiedler, and just a lot of drama for playoff fantasy football league. But yeah, this team was really good, and I was shocked when the Titans won. But now in hindsight, this was the team that they just couldn't get around them. 15-0 against everybody else, 0-3 against the Titans.
It's really something to behold to see that level of hey, we're awesome, except this team makes us cry. And that's what it is there. Matt, anything to add on these 99 Jaguars? Because that was quite the soliloquy.
Yeah, it was. I looked real quick at that AFC divisional game against Miami. They were up 41-0 in the second quarter.
Yeah.
That their defense forced 7 turnovers. That's nuts. And Fred Taylor had a 90-yard touchdown run, which is crazy. But also, last game for Dan Marino and for Jimmy Johnson with the Dolphins. So, yeah, pretty crazy. That was a stacked team, and the fact that you lose the only 3 games you lose are to the powerhouse Tennessee Titans. Granted, that was a good Titans team, obviously, but that's pretty ridiculous that you couldn't solve them in 3 opportunities.
So the one thing I will add, though, is I think this shows you one place where the NFL was ahead of everybody else in that they looked at what I have to imagine they looked a little bit when they founded the Panthers and the Jaguars, and they looked at, all right, well, the NHL just added the Sharks and the Senators and the Lightning and the Ducks, and then you had the NBA, they added the Raptors and the Grizzlies, and Major League Baseball added the Rockies and the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, that's who it was, and they erred on the same side that really Major League Baseball sided on, which was we need these teams to be decent out of the gates. Whereas the NHL, I think San Jose had a record for futility, and the NBA even, I want to say the Orlando Magic in '89 were awful, and the Timberwolves were awful when they came in, and the Raptors and Grizzlies were not very good for quite a while, and just you see the contrast between the different leagues there. It's, we if we're going to put a team in a new market, we've got to make sure that team is successful. And I think the evidence is there when you look at the NBA and you go, Vancouver doesn't exist anymore. So I thought that was an interesting thing. This is 3 years after the Jaguars came to be in existence, and now that was the Jaguars' second straight AFC title game, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
I believe you're
Sounds
correct.
right.
They lost the 98
To the Broncos.
to the Broncos not to the Broncos, to the Patriots. They beat the Broncos in 98 or 99.
No, the Patriots would have been in 96.
Yeah.
What year was that they lost? They beat the Broncos at Mile High. And that was
I
the
think
year.
they also lost to the Broncos one year, didn't they?
I'm looking it up right now.
Because in 98 they lost in the divisional round to the Jets. And then they lost to the Broncos in the wild card in 97.
So their first year in the league, second year in the league,
They were
in the AFC
playoffs.
title game.
Okay.
They
And
beat
who
the
did they lose
Broncos. They brought the Patriots.
Okay. Oh yeah, they beat the Broncos and then
They
lost
beat
to
the Broncos 30-27, and then they lost to the Patriots 20-6. And
Okay.
then so they went to that AFC title game. And then the following year, the 97-98 year, they lost to the Broncos in the wild card round. And then the year you're talking about here, the 98-99 year, they went to the title game. Nope. Then they went to the divisional the next year and lost to the Jets. So they went to 4 straight playoffs.
That was a good team. I mean, that was Tom Coughlin was there. We talked about it again off air. They had Tom Coughlin as their head coach. Dom Capers was their defensive coordinator. Pete Carmichael was a wide receivers coach. Perry Fuel, defensive backs coach, and then the great Bobby Petrino was their quarterbacks coach. So, just a good team. Tons of talent. Great coaches. Again, I think this was rightfully so on the list, but again, could have been interchangeable with numerous other teams. But I was happy they made the list.
So the Jaguars missed the playoffs their first year, went to 4 straight, then didn't go back till 2005. '07 they were back, and they have not been to the playoffs since. So, but I think that's just an important footnote there that the Jaguars and the Panthers represent kind of a change in how you really need to handle expansion teams. Number 9, this one's going to be a lot of fun because this was awesome back in the day, and it's the mid-'90s Utah Jazz. 3 NBA Western Conference Finals, or was it? Yeah, 4 Western Conference Finals in the '90s. There, 2 NBA Finals, and lost them all. And this is where we're going to pay homage to Michael Jeffrey Jordan because, my goodness, did he? He's really the reason that a lot of guys single-handedly don't have championships.
Barkley, Malone, Peyton.
No, Peyton got one.
Oh, yeah, he did. Okay.
Stockton. Got one. Yeah.
Dan Marley never got one, probably.
Thunder Dan. I can't imagine.
Dan Marley was on like every team that the Bulls beat. Oh, no, that was Danny Ainge. Wasn't he like the guy that was on like every team that the Bulls beat?
Well, I do remember him being on Phoenix.
He was on the Blazers as well.
Oh, okay.
So he was on both of those.
Every team, 2 of 6.
So this Utah Jazz team, they lost in the conference finals in '92 to the Blazers, who then lost to the Bulls. They lost in the conference finals to the Houston Rockets in '94, who won the title. They lost to the Seattle Sonics in '96, who then lost to the Bulls, and then they finally got over the hump in '97-'98 to go and win the West, only to lose to the Bulls in 6 both times. And I mean, the talent on those Jazz teams was pretty good. I mean, they had Stockton and Malone, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Jeff Hornacek, and then just Brian Russell. Brian Russell. I mean, just a lot of
Greg Ostertag,
Howard Isley, Shannon Anderson.
Ooh, that's good.
According to my list, looks like Greg Foster got some PT there for a little bit.
Yeah, just a lot of good, just a solid roster, and they played well. And Jerry Sloan was the coach, and he did a lot of good things in Utah, but unfortunately they could just never get it done because of Jordan. But at this point, if you just go to the '90s and you look at the NBA Finals for all of those years, so '91 was the Lakers, so that wasn't too bad because they'd already won themselves some titles. Drexler ends up winning with the Rockets in '94 and '95, if I'm not mistaken. So he only won when Jordan was out of the game.
You know what would have been really cool now, thinking in retrospect?
Yeah.
The Bulls against those Rockets teams.
Oh, yeah.
Those Houston teams, man, they were really, really good. When you had
stacked.
Yeah, when you had Olajuwon, you had Drexler, you had
Robert Horry, Sam Cassell.
They were a good mix of young and old guys. I mean, Drexler was a little past his prime, but still pretty damn good. You know, Hakeem was still the dream at that point. I mean, those would have been some fun series to watch.
Yeah, so your Houston Rockets, Otis Thorpe, Kenny Smith, Hakeem Olajuwon, Vernon Maxwell, Robert Horry, Mario Elie, Sam Cassell. Oh, so Drexler never did win. He was not on that team. He came after
one of them.
Yeah, they won 2 of them.
I don't think he was on the '94-'95 one, was he?
I know for sure he won at least one.
He was on the '94-'95 one. And that team was actually, you would think, would be better. Olajuwon, Horry, Drexler, Elie, Kenny Smith, Chucky Brown, Sam Cassell off the bench, Vernon Maxwell off the bench. That team went 47-35, and if I'm not mistaken, they are the lowest seed to ever win the NBA title. They were the 6th seed, and they beat the Jazz in 5, they beat the Suns in 7, they beat the Spurs in 6, and then that was the year they played the Orlando Magic in the finals and swept them out of the playoffs, and that was it. So, but yeah, to go back through the '90s here, players that didn't, anybody on those Cavalier teams The 92
Craig Elo. That's the only name I ever remember.
Mark Price.
Shot on Elo. God.
Brad.
Wasn't
Brad
Ron Harper?
Brad Doherty.
Brad Doherty. Yeah.
Ron
Yep.
Harper was on those teams.
Uh,
I believe he was.
on the 92
He was a-
Or
squad.
no, he would have been.
He was
with
a
the Clippers
Clipper, I
then.
thought.
Yeah,
No,
but he was a Cavalier. He started his career as a Cav.
So the 92 Cavs that made it to the finals to lose to Jordan and the Bulls had John Battle,
Oh yeah.
Terrell Brandon, Brad Doherty,
Terrell
Craig Elo,
Brandon.
Terrell Brandon. I used to love that guy.
I loved him when
Danny-
he was with the Timberwolves.
Danny
Timberwolves,
Ferry,
yeah.
Henry James, Steve Kerr, Larry Nance, Jimmy Oliver, Bobby Phills, Mark Price, Mike Sanders, and John Hot Rod Williams.
I
Hot
don't remember
Rod.
that guy.
Oh man, terrible. Just so bad. So you have those Cavs teams, the Knicks, John Starks. That guy's a cocksucker.
Chewing.
Yeah, Patrick Ewing, who he can't get a break as an NBA head coach right now, which is interesting.
No.
Nobody will hire him. Reggie Miller. Oh man, the Pacers. 4 NBA Eastern Conference Finals from 94 to 99, lost them all. And then they went to the finals in 2000 and got just demolished by the Lakers, I believe. So, Jordan making sure that Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing, Charles
Rick
Barkley.
Spitz.
that he makes sure that they all wake up in the middle of the night in a hot or in a cold sweat.
Yeah.
That's gotta be. I mean, Michael ruined a generation for generation of NBA basketball for a lot of amazingly talented players. But sucks to suck.
And the thing is, too, when you go back and look at Jordan's time there in the 90s, he played close games. There were a lot of games that it's not like you go back and look. I mean, they won the title on final
Yeah,
shots.
but that's only because he wanted them close. If he wanted to win by a lot, he could have.
Amazing. But seriously, think about that. I mean,
LeBron don't want the ball in his hands.
oh, God. I hate those people.
Yeah, they're the worst.
He's a top. Quick tangent. LeBron, top 5 for sure.
Top 3 for sure.
Yeah, I think he's in the top 3 now.
I think he's top 3. Him, Russell, Jordan, right? Is that
Probably. I mean, it's just it's a hard argument to have. Different eras obviously make it difficult. LeBron's just his all-around game, and like I don't know. I'd say this is just a discussion for another day because it's something I think that we would go on way too long trying to really hammer out.
I have a real hard time not putting Russell in there, considering they won the 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, and 66 Eastern Conference Finals, and won the title in all of those years except 58, lost the Eastern Conference Finals in 67, and then won it in 68 and 69. So that alone, and Bill Russell was the best player and a player coach, I believe, on those last 2. Because that guy was unreal. All right, moving on. This one's fun. This is probably one of the most fun ones we're going to talk about in this list. And it is the 2001-2002 Sacramento Kings. This is the one where Tim Donaghy, the corrupt referee who took bribes, and really, it is surprising the NBA made it out of that as unscathed as they did. But that team was really, really good. It had Chris Webber, who was really, really good.
Mike
And
Bibby.
Vlade.
Peja Stojakovic.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Rocket Jackson.
I used to love Stojakovic. That guy was my dude.
Heidu Turkoglu was on that team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, young Heidu Turkoglu.
And they had the Lakers, and then the referees decided no.
Also, Doug Christie. I forgot about him. And young Gerald Wallace and Mateen Cleaves.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Mateen Cleaves and Lawrence Funderburk.
Scott Pollard. I think we named everybody.
Bobby Jackson too. Was that thrown out there? Bobby played for a
I
long
did say.
time.
So, you look at that team, that 01-02 team, and maybe offhand you don't. They won 59 games, so it's not like they were like this.
61.
No, they won 59. Am I looking at?
2001, 2002 Kings.
Am I
They're
looking?
61
Oh, I'm
and
looking.
21.
Sorry, I'm looking at the 0203. I grabbed the wrong one because they. Weird. Sorry. I'm sorry. I clicked the link for that team, the 0102 Kings, and it takes me to the 0203 Kings.
Man,
Because the season was fixed.
Chris Webber had himself a hell of a year. Granted, he didn't. He only played 54 games. He was injured, but dude averaged 24.5 points per game, 10 rebounds, nearly 5 assists, over a block a game. I mean, that's crazy. Him and Peja. I mean, Peja averaged 21 points and 5 boards and nearly 3 assists.
I want to say they had some. If I remember correctly, I want to say they had something like 6 or 7 guys average double digits.
Yep, 7. Vladi, Weber, Stojakovic, Doug Christie, Mike Bibby, Hedo Turkoglu, and Bobby Jackson all averaged over 10 points a game, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, the fact that you're getting that much production behind 2 more guys off the bench. Only Weber and Stojakovic were over 20 points per game, but you had 5 other guys that were averaging 13, 12, 11, 10. I mean, that's nuts. Team Cleaves was giving you 2.2 points per game.
Yeah,
that's
and
that's
again,
2.2 more points per game. I thought that he would.
This is a team that should have won. I mean, that game 6, if I'm not mistaken, I think I read it earlier today. The Lakers ended up getting 27 free throws in the fourth quarter of game 6.
Yep.
And Sacramento got 9. Again, this is the one where Tim Donaghy said 2 referees had this game fixed. Of course, David Stern, who runs the world, vehemently
Who runs the world? David Stern. Who runs this mother? David Stern.
Yeah, so it's going to be the famous because it's fixed, and I think the one thing I think you could say about this team as opposed to everybody else on the list, I'll have to look briefly because a lot of the ones we lost actually lost in the finals or didn't make it. I mean, this team would have won the NBA championship if they didn't get screwed in Game 6 because then they were drawing that terrible Nets team that somehow made it to the finals.
God, how did
the Lakers swept them out 4-0, and I'm pretty sure I don't have them in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it was like they handled them pretty well.
Was Keith Van Horn still on that Nets team?
Probably. But there's no doubt in my mind that Sacramento Kings win that NBA title, and who knows where it goes from there with them, you know what I mean? I mean, Christ, they were talking about relocating for a while there, weren't they? Like after that run. So, who knows what? That's a franchise that Tim Donaghy screwed him over.
So here you go. The 01-02 Nets.
Yeah, that's hot garbage, man.
Todd McCullough, Kenyon Martin, Keith Van Horn, Kerry Kittles, and Jason Kidd. Your bench was Jason Collins, Aaron Williams, Richard Jefferson.
Is that the
Lucius Harris and Anthony Johnson?
Jason Collins one that's in jail now?
I believe.
Didn't he like shoot his friend with a shotgun?
Is he? I thought isn't he the one that?
Hold on, I got it up. Yeah, he's the one that came out gay in 2012, 2013.
And then there was another net that killed somebody though. Who was that?
Yes, that was the 02 team. I want to say, was it Williams?
Jason something. Was it Jason Williams the
murderer?
Aaron Williams? Okay. I don't know.
I'm looking at.
No, it was Jason Williams. So.
But hey, good for Richard Jefferson finally getting himself a championship on Sunday night with LeBron.
Looking at this list, it's just I think one of the most fun parts is there's just so many of those sub storylines with each of these teams, right? So you go back to the 01-02 team, and it makes us think of these Nets, who then have Richard Jefferson, who last night said that he's going to write essays that might be erotica.
Yeah, I saw that.
What do they call it? Like the six degrees of Kevin Bacon or something like that? Like you can be any actor and find a way. Yeah, so it all ties back together.
So good for Richard Jefferson though. I didn't realize till last night that he had not won a title.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that guy didn't win a title. Amazing.
Good for him hanging around for as long as he did too. I mean, he was a relatively productive player throughout his career. So
and you know what? Good on him for being straight up and saying, yeah, I owe everything to LeBron.
I owe LeBron.
Yeah.
right? Like not afraid to come out. And hey, let's have some props for J.R. Smith, who I think still hasn't put a shirt on today.
No, yeah, he doesn't believe in shirts.
He is like, no,
That
I
dude's
am.
awesome. I don't care, man. I love that guy.
That was amazing. Just everywhere it's like, oh look, J.R. Smith, still no shirt. What would you put it at odds that he doesn't have a shirt on during the parade?
Let's just say I'm not making a bet against it.
Right, like that.
Did you see him? Did you see him dumping? This quick tangent. The Cavs stopped in Vegas last night on their flight home.
Yeah, amazing.
And this awesome, amazing video surfaces where this woman in a I don't know
all over the woman.
Yeah, I don't know if she's a cheerleader or what she is.
Waitress. She was a waitress at the bar.
And she's got a Cavs outfit on, very scantily clad, and she's spraying champagne in the air, and he just dumps a full bottle on her head. Like, he doesn't care. And then Matthew Dellavedova is over there drinking Corona out of a can wearing a wide shirt. Like, he looks like a
I won't lie to you, I
60-year-old
gained a little respect for Dellavedova last night.
because of the Hawaiian shirt.
The
or
Hawaiian
Corona
shirt
in
and
his hand?
both. The whole ensemble and the accoutrement.
That was 60-year-old dad down in
Yeah, that was
El
if
Poco
Dave
Vista.
Russo. If Dave Russo was athletic and a professional basketball player.
I have no idea if Perth, Australia is like the home for 60-year-old men in Hawaiian shirts, but I'm going to go ahead and say, like, if it is, that is definitely where Matthew Dellavedova is retiring one day. He's going to go down to Perth and drink his Corona and just hang out on the western half of Australia, because that's awesome. And I'm going to give major props to LeBron. I loved the Ultimate Warrior T-shirt.
He also wore the Kermit the Frog sipping tea hat yesterday, which I also thought was good. So
Good stuff from LeBron. All right, moving on to this team just is so odd for me on this list, and it's
I
great.
did not have them, but they probably should have been, just given.
What the 0-1 Mariners, who won 116 games and didn't even get to go to the World Series, which is ridiculous to win that many games. But
baseball is weird though too. But
yeah,
still,
it goes to what Theo Epstein is trying to do for the Cubs. So again, bringing it back big picture here and locally, Theo knows that the best chance for the Cubs to win a World Series is to build a team that goes to the playoffs every single year. Right? You go to the playoffs every single year, eventually you're going to break through. Right? Even the Braves, even the 90s Braves who went to like 6 World Series or something like that and won one of them.
at least they were getting there. At least they won one.
Right, they won one. Like,
gotta get there.
It came up, and their number came up the one year, and that was that, and that's it. And that's what I think Cubs fans, need to realize is, I know in the past few weeks I've kind of gotten on this run where I'm like, oh man, anything but a World Series is a disappointment, but it really only becomes a huge disappointment if we never hear from this team again, which it looks like Epstein has built something to go for the long haul. And this Mariners team, I don't think they then did anything after this.
Not really that I remember. And it's crazy. Like, I'm looking at their roster right now. It's pretty ridiculous how, stacked they were. I mean, you had David Bell, Brett Boone.
This team was
Jay
this team
Buhner,
was
Mike Cameron.
run by
Ichiro, Edgar Martinez. Man, just stacked. Sorry, I was cutting you off there.
This team was run by steroids, so I think that's where my there's Brett Boone. This was far and away a career year. I think he might have been caught juicing too, if I'm not mistaken. Near the end of his
it
career,
didn't matter then.
And as far as Jay Buhner, he played in 50. He had 53 at bats, so he doesn't count as a player on this team. But the problem I had with this was I looked at it and I was like, okay, yeah, they were a good team, but then their pitching was jack shit. They had sweaty Freddie Garcia, a young sweaty Freddie, but then Aaron Seeley was their number 2. You had 38-year-old Jamie Moyer, who had an okay season, but then you had Paul Abbott, John Halama, Joel Pinheiro,
Aaron Seeley.
Yeah, they're not I'm like, how did this team win 116 games? And the answer is steroids.
He had
So
3 guys win over 17 games.
it's because everybody on offense was.
Well, yeah, I know because
juicing.
like you look at Paul Abbott, he went 17-4, but he had a 4.25 ERA. Jamie Moyer had a nice year, 20 wins, 6 losses, 3.43
He also had
ERA.
a 5. Paul Abbott had a 5.01 FIP, which means that 4.25 ERA is actually low.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they had a good bullpen. I will give them that. But
Oh man, that is a pretty good bullpen. Sasaki and Arthur Rhodes.
That Yankee team
blows me away.
ran all over them though.
Yeah, and that 2001 Yankee team is a team that I actually had that I thought about putting on the list, but I'm like, I can't. If I'm putting the Yankees on there, I got to put these guys on there. Just again, this is the whole thing with baseball, and I think I was talking to somebody earlier about this exact topic that we're doing, and I said baseball is the one sport where more often than not the best team doesn't win, and I think you can go back almost every year and say that. Like, how often does the best regular season team or that preseason favorite actually win the World Series?
So I think it's an interesting point you bring up because I think when you look at the 4 major sports, I think it is clear that the NBA is the one that bucks that completely, right? You need to have the best players and the best team to win the title.
Yeah, there's a few outliers, but for the most part, yes.
And even the only team in the last 35 years that did it without supposed stars, in retrospect, you're like, yeah, that team was damn good. And I'm talking, I think it was the 04 or the 05 Pistons.
I think you could make an argument for the year the Mavericks beat the Heat. I mean, Dirk was obviously, he's still a superstar. He's an all-time great player, but he was closer to the end of his career than he was the beginning of it. So
Yeah,
I think you could
Jason
argue.
Terry played out of his mind. I
think you could argue that, but I certainly, I think the NBA 99% of the time is you need superstars to win.
And if you go back up until really 2000, I think it was pretty safe to say that the best team consistently won in the NFL.
Right.
Right. You could go back and there's, I mean, looking at this list, we have 3 football teams on this list, and one of them, all of them at least made it to the conference title game. Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody I guess on this list made it. No, they made it too. So everybody gets to that level at least, but it's an interesting way to look at it, right? So the NFL really seemed to have it under control, and now the NFL loves the fact that their playoff is full of anybody, right? Because who the hell knows what's going to happen? I know.
Sky, your internet connection's kind of breaking up here.
Oh, I am fading out, aren't I? Sorry about that.
Yeah, you were. I wasn't sure if it was me or what there for a second, but
I think I'm back.
Okay.
It sounds.
Am I
better.
back? Okay, but you look at the league. So NBA is obviously that one league where stars win it, and then I think NHL and NFL are kind of in that same boat, where more often than not the best team. But baseball nowadays, it is just roll the dice, right? I mean, what was the last great baseball team to win the title? I mean, truly, like from start to finish, like, yep, that's the team that should win the title.
Yeah, it's
one of those Yankees teams. That's what jumps out at me.
Yeah, there always just seems to be that sort of, I don't know, baseball seems to just be so much odder than other sports. I don't know if that makes sense.
Like, I don't want to mix this up and say that like good teams don't win, but like the team that goes, okay, like this team is the best team, like they should win.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So some interesting stuff there, but yeah, that Mariners team. I think you're right, Ben. We'll just call it what it is, and it is it's steroids. Let's go on. Speaking of steroids, let's look at those mid-90s Indians right now, because we're going to talk about the 95 and 97 Indians here. Holy cow! Let's take a look at that roster here that has Sandy Alomar Jr. and
Albert Bell.
Albert Bell,
Omar Vizquel, Jim Thome, Kenny Lofton, Eddie Murray, Paul Sorrento.
Hey, Jim Thome's farm boy strong.
If you look at the 95 team, a couple of utility guys coming off the bench for them, Brian Giles and Jeremy Burnitz.
Oh, I don't know if you mentioned Manny, but Manny's on there too. So
Yeah, Manny Ramirez. Dave Winfield at age 43 got some ABs. Oh, God, Herbert Perry was on that team? Good God.
those are some pretty stacked teams. I mean, man, when you had, geez, Albert Bell with his 50 home runs, Manny with 31, Eddie Murray with 21 at 39 years old, DH Eddie Murray cranking out 21 home runs. Pretty crazy. Yeah,
I mean,
mean,
just to stretch, I mean, they had the core that stuck together, but, I mean, then you look like 96, they had Carlos Baerga, they had Julio Franco came in. God, just looking at more, I mean, that's when Giles and Burnitz kind of played a bigger impact.
mm-hmm.
And, of course, they had the two World Series teams, the 95 and the 97 team. The 97 team was the team that lost to the Marlins, I believe. Was it Game 7 that they lost to the Marlins? I can't remember.
Yes, they lost Game 7 in Florida.
But they were
Mesa
up by
blew the save.
1. Yeah, Jose Mesa blew the save, and then obviously in the 9th. So, again, these teams... Oh, and then 97, they brought in a good guy named David Justice, Matt Williams. So, I mean, they were replacing really good players with really good players.
Yeah, so just so you know, Ben, Cleveland was up 2-1 going to the 9th. And they gave up a run in the 9th, and then in the 11th.
I think the one thing they didn't have was what. Yeah, I remember it from the Believe Land.
Believe Land, yeah, that was. I'll be honest, that was something until I watched the Believe Land, the 30 for 30 documentary that came out maybe a month or two ago. I honestly didn't realize that. I don't know how I didn't realize that or why I didn't realize that they had blown that lead there in the 7th inning. So
yeah, those teams,
inning,
man. I remember loving the Cleveland Indians in like the mid '90s because it was just they had Kenny Lofton, they had Albert Bell. Didn't help that my little league team was the Indians for I think back-to-back years. And they
had a svelte young Bartolo Colon at 24 years of age.
Yeah.
Wonder how much he weighed then.
$160. Yeah, just again, you just look at those 3 years, and you could probably even look the year before, like '94, and then like obviously '98, and they were probably still good. But that 3-year stretch, you look at that lineup, and it's just like, I mean, there's a handful of Hall of Famers on those teams, and it's just the fact that they didn't win, and again, just kind of fits the bill with Cleveland that they almost won. Just unbelievable to me.
For sure. So let's one last tangent because we're right here in the middle of the 90s. Your favorite steroids player of all time from the 90s Major League Baseball?
Like confirmed or just suspected?
Either or. I don't care.
Because I don't know if Albert Bell was fueled by steroids or cocaine. It was one of the two.
That's a performance-enhancing drug.
Maybe both.
Because Albert Bell might be in there. I loved watching that guy play.
That guy could rake, man.
Oh.
He really could.
Sammy's got to be up there. I mean,
I think I love
White
I don't
or
even
black
know,
Sammy.
Black Sammy for sure. I love Brady Anderson so much.
Just
wow, great that is a fantastic
just
reference.
1 year.
Oh,
that is great.
I'm gonna pull up his stats right now, but anytime
I want to venture a guess and say, and again, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm sure I've looked at it before. He obviously had, was it 50 he hit the 1 year? 50 or 51? Okay. Was his next high, I want to say like 17?
Here we go. I'm looking at it right now. It was 50 in 1996, and then he hit 24.99.
Okay.
So a 26 home run difference between his best and second best year.
Brady Anderson is not a man who I ever thought I would think of ever again.
So 1996, in 687 plate appearances, he had 50 home runs. In 1997, with 9 more plate appearances, he hit 18.
Yeah.
And then he hit
He got
18
off the
again
cycle.
in 98. And then in 99, he shot back up to 24. Where was he at in 95? That's the one. Oh, 1995 in 657 plate appearances, 16.
Yeah.
So we went from 16 to 50. Amazing.
To
Just
18 to 24.
Oh, Brady Anderson, you are something else, my man. All right. To our one and only hockey team we go now. And we're going to talk some Red Wings because they had 131 points in 1995-96.
Is that the most all time?
I believe so. I thought it was. Maybe it was second.
It's one of those things that is so hard to. I think they're comparable to so they had more wins than anybody. The record was 60 by the 76-77 Canadiens. And then their 131 points was second to the Canadiens, 132. So there you go. And the Red Wings I think they round out. No, we'll talk about the other two eventually.
They won the Central Division by 37 points.
Wow. The Red Wings 62 wins. They are the team that is now on the very, very ominous list, which is teams that had the most wins in a season, but then did not win the title. So all 4 major sports now have that.
Yep.
Which is quite the odd coincidence. But yeah, Ben, as you said, the Red Wings won the division by what did you say, Ben? It was 37
points
over the Hawks, and then they got into the playoffs, and what did they do? They lost in the conference finals. I hate this. I can't get to what I want to get to here. But and then the Avalanche went on and they played the Florida Panthers, and Van Beesbrook's magic for them just couldn't do it.
This Detroit team was just unbelievably good.
Yeah.
And you had Fedorov, Yzerman, Kozlov, Larionov, Keith Primeau, Dino Ciccarelli, even like the younger guys who we know. I mean, they were younger at the time, but like Darren McCarty, Chris Draper, Marty LaPointe, Stu Grimson, Kirk Maltby. And then defense, you had Paul Coffey, Nick Lindstrom, Matthew Dandino. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else on here that I can say I know for sure. I mean, Konstantinov. I mean, they had 2 defensemen with Lindstrom had 67 points, Coffey had 74. They had 30 goal scorers. Fedorov had 39, Yzerman 36, Kozlov 36. You added 3 more 20 goal scorers, and then 5 more double-digit goal scorers. So, my God, how did they just ran into Patrick Waugh? I guess that's what it was.
Well, that Avs team was not bad. I mean, they had Waugh, Sakic, Forsberg, and just unbelievable. They did almost get knocked out, though. I mean, they played a 7-game series against the Blues and had to win in double overtime in Game 7 to advance to the conference finals. And that would also that would be the last year, I believe, that the Hawks were worth a damn for a long time. No, the Hawks were the 8th seed the following year in the playoffs.
Chris Osgood had a goal that year as a goalie.
Oh, nice.
Impressive.
Good find of those. Yeah, so this was the last really decent Hawks team. And just a couple tough breaks there. The Hawks lost in triple and double overtime in Game 4 and 6 to the Avs. And then that was that for them. Then they were the 8th seed the following year, and a lot of sadness for the Hawks for a long time after that. That Red Wings team was awesome, but just interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about them because I have a couple of things that I'm thinking about in terms of teams that win and then don't do this because this is such an interesting list. But let's get to number 4, which will close out 4 through 10, and that's when we kind of recap. But number 4 is a really, really interesting team, and it's the 98 Minnesota Vikings. Ben, do you have any numbers on that? I feel like you're ready to go with most of the stuff.
I'm
What are
pulling
you
them
saying?
up.
I'm not ready.
Are you ready, Matt?
No.
Oh, okay.
I do believe that obviously this was the team that went 15-1. Their only loss was to the Buccaneers in Week 9.
Yep.
I don't have it in front of me, but if I'm not mistaken, was this not the year that Gary Anderson went the entire season without missing a field goal?
Sure is.
And he finally missed one in the NFC Championship game to obviously eventually lose lose the NFC Championship game. The Giants ended up going to the Super Bowl.
So I'm no expert, but that's probably not a good thing. When you when you're only missed field goal the whole year.
Yeah, he was 35 for 35.
Yeah, that's
59 of 59 for extra points.
39-year-old Gary Anderson with his single bar helmet.
Yep.
So, go ahead, Ben.
But I believe this was also the year Brad Johnson started the season as the starting quarterback. Had a couple games where he got hurt, and then eventually week 3 or week 4 is when he got hurt, and that's when Randall Cunningham took over. And just to tell you, I mean, Mark Brunell, we talked about the 99 Jaguars with that fantastic 14-9 season. Well, Randall Cunningham took over, and this is when Randy Moss was, I think he was a rookie in 98. No?
Yes.
Yeah.
Randall Cunningham had 34 touchdowns and 10 interceptions.
First team All-Pro that year.
At age 35.
Crazy.
And then, of course, you look at the receiving numbers, and you had Randy Moss.
If you really look at, sorry to cut you off, but if you look at this real quick, I mean, he put, putting up over 3,700 yards. That is a ton in 1998.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. I mean, offenses weren't throwing the ball the way they were throwing the ball. Like, that was that was almost revolutionary, that offense that they were running that year. And obviously having Randy Moss helps, and having Chris Carter helps. But man, they really, really shook up what offenses were. Or they were sort of like the tip of the iceberg of what offenses would become and what they've obviously become now and become so pass reliant. But I mean, the fact that Robert Smith still had a pretty damn good year on top of that.
1,200 yards almost.
Yeah.
But I mean, this was, if you remember, this was the, it's kind of a regular thing nowadays in the NFL where you need 2, 3, 4 decent receivers. This was the first time. This was Chris Carter, Jake Reed, and Randy Moss. This was the first time you really had that like 3-headed monster to take over. And man, we talk about, it was the 99 Rams that were the greatest show on turf, correct?
Yeah.
The following year.
Well, this was like the precursor to them. I mean, they were number 1 in the NFL in offense. Defense, they were number 6.
And their offensive coordinator, Brian Billick. Yeah, which I think people always will look at Brian Billick and think of the Ravens team, which he played a big part in that. But he was an offensive mastermind. He's also a tall drink of water, according to Ben. When you run into him outside of a elevator at Soldier Field, but Brian Billick, I don't think gets enough credit for what he did offensively as a coach. But man, those teams. That offense was so good under him. Even before that, I mean, he hung around in Minnesota for a long time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in Minnesota. So,
yeah. My mistake. This is when they lost to the Falcons, not the Giants. The Giants was the year when Moss got admitted to taking plays off.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
So, looking at this game specifically, that NFC title game. I think this is going to be a list for another day, but this is easily a top 10 stomach punch moment ever, right?
For what do you mean?
Like the Gary Anderson missed field goal?
Yeah, I would think so. how
And
long?
you got some flashbacks this year with Blair Walsh's miss against Seattle as well.
How long? How long was the miss?
38 yards.
Oh wow, that a chip shot too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little more understandable if he misses a 48-yarder or a 50-yarder or something like that. You're like, oh man, tough break. Those are tough to hit in the NFL. But and he was inside too. That's what makes it even worse.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad. Yeah, I'll send
Would
you
have been fun to
guys.
see the Vikings and the Broncos though, because that Vikings team was stacked, man. Defensively, I think that was John Randall in his heyday.
Mm-hmm.
That's not Barrett Ruud. Who's the other one?
Oh, there's another Rude, isn't there? Linebacker.
Yeah, I think.
Or maybe
I think
not.
he was
Oh
on
yeah,
this team.
Dwayne Rude.
Yeah. I mean, they were a dominant team. I mean, obviously you go 15-1.
Yeah, they had 10 Pro Bowlers that year.
Yeah, they were unbelievable.
Yeah.
I will say to give Gary Anderson a little bit of a break here, it wasn't as though his field goal was going to send them to the Super Bowl. He missed the field goal, and then the Falcons came down and had to score a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And they did with 49 seconds left. So,
but he's the snapshot of what that's.
But if he hits the field goal, then they're up 10.
Right. No, I understand, but
so I know it didn't win it, but it would have pretty much won it.
Yeah, I don't know. Interesting little parallel. Morton Anderson, the kicker for the Falcons, made a 38-yard field goal to win the game.
And was also 108 years old, like Gary Anderson.
Oh my God! Yeah.
The Anderson family.
All right. So to quickly recap: 10, the '99 Jaguars; 9, the '90s Utah Jazz; 8, the 01-02 Sacramento Kings; 7, the '01 Mariners; 6, the mid-'90s Indians; 5, the '96 Red Wings; and 4, the '98 Vikings. So some pretty good stuff on there. Some good stomach punch stuff. You have, the Gary Anderson missed field goal, the Jose Mesa blown save. So, and then for the Jazz, you have Michael Jordan. Take your pick of moments.
Being Michael Jordan.
I mean, the two that stand out are clearly in the first run where he had the flu and was awesome, and then the following year when he dragged that Bulls team to the title in '98 and hit that game-winning shot. It was unbelievable. So, all right, number 3 is the saddest team on this list. Right? This
wasn't even their fault.
No, this wasn't their fault, but this is the saddest. This team doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's even sadder.
Oh, this is brutal. So, the '94 Expos. The 1994 Montreal Expos, and it is sad because they may probably, I don't want to say probably, but they were definitely on track to win.
Does that change the complete trajectory of that organization? Had they won a World Series, would we still have baseball in Montreal, you think?
You'd think it would, right?
I mean, you would think so. I mean, I wouldn't imagine Major League Baseball would move a team out of, a city that, let's see, when did the Nationals come in existence? Early 2000s, so.
04.
Yeah, so 10 years later, I mean, I would highly doubt within 10 years they're saying, well, we're going to move on from this organization.
Yeah, just something you never know. It's like one of those things where maybe because they ended up having to sell off so many pieces because financially they couldn't keep them. So who knows what the World Series does as far as finances for them? Maybe they keep everybody, and it's
maybe they have.
Like you said,
yeah, I mean that could have changed.
Maybe they have multiple World Series.
Yeah. I mean, guys like Larry Walker, Moises Alou, could have made their
Marquise Grissom, Cliff Floyd.
Like that could have been, you could be looking at them. I'm not saying they're the Yankees of the 90s.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, just look at it this way: you had 21-year-old Cliff Floyd, you had 22-year-old Will Cordero, you had 27-year-old Moises Alou, you had 27-year-old Marquise Grissom, 27-year-old Larry Walker on your bench. You had 22-year-old Rondell White.
Yeah.
You had 22-year-old Pedro Martinez. Jesus Christ, Jeff Facero was 31 then. Didn't he pitch like another? Like, didn't he just retire?
He hung around forever.
I mean, they had a very young, very good team. So, yeah, I don't think it's, I'm not saying they definitely keep everybody together, but that bullpen was, God, Gil Heredia? It's like all that. Did they just trade their entire bullpen to the Cubs? Jeff
Seems
Facero,
like it.
Mel Rojas, Gil Heredia.
So, so to go back to Matt's point real quick, they, after everything that happened with the Lorio was cheap, and he still is, and a complete scumbag to boot, but whatever. That's a conversation for a different day. But Jeff Lorio was awful, and they just weren't attracting fans. And so, I mean, everything I'm reading here, and I'm perusing quickly, there wasn't anything about needing a new stadium. So it wasn't like, because you look at like the Seattle Supersonics.
Well, I mean, just not to cut you off, but the next year, so 95, they went 66 and 78.
Ugh. And how many players did they lose?
Well, they definitely lost Walker. I still see Alou there. I still see Cordero. That's really it. That's like all that was left. They did add Henry Rodriguez, though.
Interesting.
Pedro.
Pedro Martinez pitched 9 perfect innings against the Padres before giving up a hit in the 10th.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, they also traded Delino DeShields for him. That's what's crazy. Straight up, Delino DeShields to the Dodgers for Pedro Martinez. I would say that deal worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of. I mean, I guess kind of. But.
Well, no, it definitely worked out.
Well, no,
I
mean, it did. But in the end, when Pedro ended up getting moved along later down the line, anyways, because they couldn't afford him.
Here, you ready for a super, super fun stat?
Lay it on me.
June 1st, 1995. Future Super Bowl MVP Tom Brady was drafted by the Expos in the 18th round of the amateur draft.
That I remember. They just talked about that.
Yeah, dude, they had like a picture of him wearing an Expos.
Picture of him wearing an Expos hat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Did not know that. So, just so shitty for that. I mean, you have to imagine though, like, does the whole trajectory of the Expos change with that happening? And I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously one of those questions we never know the answer to, but it is one that's interesting to ask and interesting to think about because, I mean, in my opinion, it truly, truly changes the landscape of Major League Baseball. Where does a guy like Bryce Harper right now? If that's the case, where's a guy like Steven Strasburg? Where's really anybody? I mean, I guess that could be said with any, looking back in hindsight with anything, but it is interesting because of the way that Major League Baseball has seemingly tried to stay completely American, in the U.S. while you look at the NFL and they're really trying to expand out into other ventures and other areas and stuff, while Major League Baseball seems perfectly content with just one team in Canada and, go from there.
Yeah, the hard part about the what if with the Expos becoming the Nationals is you had a full change in ownership there, and the only reason the ownership was willing to change was because they wanted the team in Washington. So it's a really weird what if to go with there. And I mean the 90s and 2000s, I mean it's the Canadian dollar struggled. I mean that's why the NHL moved Winnipeg and Quebec out of Canada because they were struggling. So it's really, really, really interesting everything that has to go into that. But something we'll never know. And that Expos team would have had quite the chance to win the World Series. At least I think so. I think it would have been it would have been pretty good. So it would have been a good chance for them. All right. To the number 2 is the most recent add to this list, and that is the Golden State Warriors. 73 win regular season, lost as many games in the regular season as they did in the postseason. Some Bulls fans rejoiced last night, I guess.
I didn't get that. Whatever.
Yeah.
Seems silly to me to
I mean,
rejoice in
the
that.
72-10 Bulls. I mean, don't get me wrong, awesome. They end up 87-13 and playing 100 games even that year.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's just I don't just think of like, oh, remember when the Bulls won 72-10? They won 6 titles in 8 years.
Yeah, I'm not like thrown off by the fact, if it would have been Golden State beats the regular season record, they win a championship on Sunday night. It doesn't take away from me what the '96 Bulls were. I mean, it shouldn't, and who cares? Like that's what I don't get. Like people rejoicing, people posting pictures of it don't mean a thing if he ain't got a ring. Sort of thing, which was made popular by, I mean, the Bulls did do that. That was their own doing in '96. Like I saw a picture of Pippen warming up before a game that he was wearing. It was like a team issued sort of thing. That, I mean, yeah, but it's just silly. It was just like all over Facebook and all over Twitter, people I follow or friends with, like, damn right, the Bulls records remains, and it's like, why do you care? I don't care. That doesn't take away their championships. Who gives a shit? They won 6 titles between 1990 and 1998. So whatever. I don't care. I don't care if they only won. I don't care if they squeaked into the playoffs with 50 wins and won a championship. I don't care. They still won,
Yeah. So for me, I almost like the Golden State thing. Like they're 2 on this list, and I almost wonder if they're too high. And I wonder if we're going to look back on this and, once we get some history, if it's going to end up being too high, because ultimately, what was the thing that undid Golden State last night? They lost to the best freaking basketball player on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think the thing you're missing, you're talking specifically Game 7. They had 3 cracks.
Yeah, that's a great point.
They had 3 cracks, and 2 of them were at home.
Yeah.
At a place that they lost, what, once or twice during the regular season?
Twice during the regular season, and then
a handful, obviously.
Now 3 during the playoffs, I think.
So I think that, to me, I was the only one that had them as my number 1 for that exact reason, because, I think at this point, I won't say it, but I think number 1's pretty obvious if you're a sports fan what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's a 1 game in a neutral spot, and it's the NFL. Anything can happen. Obviously, that's a team that should have won, but you're up 3-1. You have 3 cracks to win 1 game. A team that won 73 games during the regular season. You had 3 cracks to win 1 game, and 2 of the 3 were at home where you played lights-out basketball, and you completely shit your pants and lost the series. And yes, it was to the best player on the planet. There's no denying that, and I think that's probably why you guys probably took the team you did number 1. But to me, that's inexcusable. You have the MVP. You have 73 wins, Coach of the Year, guys that make 30-foot jumpers.
Arguably the best bench in the league. I mean, the fact that you could, a guy like Sean Livingston comes off the bench for you. Did he come off the bench?
Last night he did.
Yeah, so I mean,
I think he kind of flip-flopped in and out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a great team that didn't win and should have. If they get swept in 4, fine. Yeah, they're probably too high. Are they still on this list? Yes. Are they number 1, number 2? Probably not. But I mean, maybe they are anyway, just because it's fresh in our minds. But to me, the biggest thing was 3 cracks, 2 at home, and you couldn't close the deal.
Yeah, you blew it.
That's I don't want to call it a choke job because
you're still playing LeBron.
But that's
you had your chances.
Yeah. That was crazy to me that they blew that.
And it still took last night. I mean, ultimately in Game 7, it still took a pretty miraculous, maybe not miraculous, but a definite high degree of difficulty 3-pointer from Kyrie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the series kind of played out. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I mean, me and Matt had talked about it. Is we said the Cavs are going to win. They're going to win in 7, and they can't try and outscore the Warriors. They need to play their game. They need to play that defensive game, and they did it really, really well. I mean, for the most part, there were 2 games where Clay and Steph really took off and stole everything, and that was games 3 and 4.
Maybe. It wasn't even a standard Steph and Clay game. I think the thing that really changed this series was Kevin Love got hurt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cavaliers realized that like Ty Lue finally went, yeah, we can't play that guy.
I mean, they still played him, but just not.
They stopped trying to force the issue with him. I think
Right.
they tried too hard in the beginning of the series to make Love more of a focal point offensively, and I think they learned that with him not out on the court, LeBron was able to sort of turn back into a better combination of both
the best 5 in the league.
Yeah, to be able to be more than just, he wasn't just a facilitator, he wasn't just a scorer. He was a combination of both without Love on the court, because I felt like he didn't feel like he needed to get Love involved. And then that also opened it up for Kyrie, who I thought Kyrie had an outstanding series. I thought he played very, very well.
Especially when all the chips were on the line. Like when they're down 3-1.
He hit a shot like that. I mean, the fact that more people aren't talking about Kyrie's shot, that 3, I mean, that's big time basketball, man. That's clutch. That is a clutch shot, and he played great down the stretch, and just that whole team. I mean, and back to the Warriors, it's just like Ben was talking about. It's they still lost to a very good team. They lost to the best player in the game right now, but when you have 2 opportunities to win it at home, you have 3 opportunities overall to win it, and you can't do it. It's disappointing, and it makes you one of the best teams to never win a championship.
So let's flip this really quick to LeBron. Do people not realize how versatile he is?
I think people don't want to realize it. There's too many people, I think, that I take for example the 3 of us. We grew up in an era with Michael Jordan, as I'm assuming as he was my favorite athlete in all of sports. Loved Michael Jordan, idolized him, wanted to be him, thought I could be him. Obviously, I can't. I'm short and fat and not talented. Yeah, and and had one of those thrown in there in a while. And now I'm losing my train of thought. Thanks, Scott. But I think people just sadly, blindly think that Jordan's the best. Nobody can even come close, and they unfairly compare LeBron to him. And to me, LeBron's ability to do everything on the court is amazing. He could guard 1 through 5, and he could guard 1 through 5 extremely well. He could score on you. He could facilitate. He can do everything. And
I will say, not to sorry.
No.
As far as the 1 to 5 thing, the way that teams play now, these aren't the same 5s that Jordan had to deal with.
Yeah, you're not dealing with
these 4s and 5s now are stretch 4s.
Mm-hmm.
That I think Jordan would have schooled no problem. Now, I mean your 4s now are 6'8". Draymond Green is technically a 4 or 5.
Yeah, definitely.
Jordan could have posted him up. I mean,
there's only like a very small handful of 7-footers in the league now who can make a difference in the
it's not even that, is that they just don't fit in what offenses want to do anymore.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's no way like a Luke Longley is hacking it in the NBA now. I mean, that's basically Timothy Mozgov, who lost his starting spot and is jack shit now. So I think that's the difference when they say LeBron could guard a 1 through 5. Yeah, he could, but the NBA, the way the offenses run, are so different than what they used to be. And that's why I don't think it's fair that you compare players across a generation. I think LeBron is the best player of his generation. Jordan's the best player of his generation. It's where you want to cut off the generations where you can argue, because I'd also say Kobe was the best player of his generation, but it certainly overlapped with Jordan and LeBron.
There's certain windows for each player, and different eras, different rules, different, like you said, different ways offenses have run, different ways when you look now where like you're talking about with your 4s and 5s are totally different looking players. I mean,
Right.
some 4s and 5s are guys who played the 3 in the 90s. I mean, Pippen would probably be playing, he'd be a 4 in this league more than likely. I mean, LeBron's essentially a 4 in the, given his size. So it's different. It's tough. It's difficult to make those. I don't think I'll ever sit there and say, Michael's is 100% better than LeBron, or LeBron's 100% better than Jordan, because it's too hard to make the comparisons. And I think people sadly try to do it way too much when it means nothing. You know what I mean? There's no like, well, if all these people say LeBron's better than Jordan, then LeBron gets this $1 million prize. It's silly to even think about it. It's just enjoy what he's been able to do, and enjoy and remember the things Jordan did.
And I think for me, one of the things that bothers me about this debate is it almost feels like people are afraid for Jordan to not be the best player ever anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When really, I don't want Jordan to be the best player ever. Right? Like, as a sports fan,
want to see?
As a sports fan, I want to see the next best player ever, and like I'm excited for hopefully somebody in the next 10 years to be coming up and they're playing his high school games on TV, so that I could be like, man, we're about to see something real awesome here. And that's what LeBron has given us for 13 years now, almost, is just pure awesomeness. And and a guy that can, it really is a debate if he might be the best that's ever played. How many guys have been anointed the next great one and then aren't?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And here's LeBron James, and he 6 straight NBA Finals, 3 titles. He carried one dog shit Cleveland team to an NBA Finals, before he left for Miami. He was the best player on a loaded Miami team for 4 years. He's now taken the Cavs to 2 more finals. I mean, it's absolutely insane, the people that want to just say, oh, fuck LeBron, blah blah. And it's like, dude, what? You're watching.
Like people get. It's just like I don't know if it's a Chicago thing, if it's just across the board thing, but it's like, people wanting to say like, oh, this team was better than the '85 Bears, and it's like all of a sudden these people come out of the woodwork, and it's like, how dare you disrespect the greatest team that's ever been assembled, and you don't know, you were too young to truly understand. Like, fuck that. Like, just embrace good players. I don't see what the problem is. And just I love watching LeBron play. I've said it since he joined the league. I know there were times that I was a little frustrated with the decision and all that shit, but I don't know. He to me, he's the best player in the league. I don't think there's anyone that's going to debate that. And if you can't see that simply for what it's worth, then I don't think you truly can appreciate or understand the game.
So
that's
Matt,
my take.
You provided me a nice segue here, because you brought up the '85 Bears, and number 1 on this list is the Patriots and their 18-1 season. And the thing that pissed me off the most about the Patriots not winning that Super Bowl was goddamn Mercury Morris and his stupid champagne after the last undefeated team. God, I fucking hate that. Man. And that's the thing that I hate most about.
He needed to be on our worst people in sports countdown.
He really should have. That's a big miss from us. But God, looking at that Patriots team, that was probably the saddest part. And for the Patriots, they really, that helmet catch, that has to just pain so many of those guys, because that was it.
That was their season.
That was it.
One crazy, weird. And there's still the argument whether or not Eli should have been down or called down, or the play should have been.
Ben, what do you think? Was he in the grasp?
Probably.
Matt? Yeah, I mean, probably, but it's, I guess in that situation, I understand why you don't.
I've seen less called before.
Yeah. It's...
But hell, Peyton got away with that fake slide thing bullshit and still got up and ran away that earlier this year. It's weird. I guess it's at the discretion of the referee and yada yada yada.
I will say this with that Eli Manning one is I've seen that same thing called before, but I don't know that I could say that I've seen anything worse not called.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
No,
So
I know what you
that's
mean.
the
Like
least.
that was clearly the most extreme case of him not being called down.
Yes. So that team was really, really good. Brady and Moss were really, 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 really good.
Yeah, that Moss set the record that year, right? 20 something touchdowns.
Yeah, well, so did Brady. Brady had 50.
And they were
Yeah.
they only had like 2 games, I want to say, that
They didn't score.
no, that the Patriots were really in danger of
One
not.
being that week 17, right?
Oh yeah, there was. You're right. There was that one. I was thinking of the Ravens on Monday Night Football, where there was maybe that pass interference in the end zone. But yeah, there was the Giants game, the last week. But then, other than that, they played the Eagles and won that by 3. But other than that, they didn't really have any challenge that year. I mean, that was pretty unbelievable. So it's a surprise. It's surprising they should have won the title. I mean, it's that simple. And
Yeah, I mean they ran. It's one of those things where it's just like you run into this amazingly weird circumstance in that game, and out of nowhere, I crazy that Eli can be so damn good in Super Bowls while being average to slightly above average a lot of other times, and it was just one of those odd situations where just a weird play just all of a sudden made a what could have been a all-time team essentially just go by the wayside.
I think it's also an interesting thing that Eli Manning is responsible for the 2 worst losses in Tom Brady's career. And it took 2 really miraculous catches in order for that to happen. The helmet catch and then the Manningham catch on the sidelines. That I still don't know how Mario Manningham caught that ball. Ben, any thoughts on this Patriots team? I know they
Uh,
weren't your number 1, but
I mean, they were obviously an obvious choice. I went between them and the Warriors. The Warriors were the first team I wrote down simply because it just happened, and that's what gave me the idea for the list. But yeah, I mean, it was an all-time team that was just an offensive juggernaut. I don't remember where their defense ranked exactly, but I thought it was pretty decent. It was a team that I thought definitely should have won, and I think you kind of summed it up with the helmet catch, where it's just a freak play that just derails history, essentially. And I think that's kind of a theme across the board, where there's just that one thing with these teams that seem to go wrong at the wrong time, and that was it.
So the last question I'll pose to you guys as we wrap this up here, and again, the final 3 on our list were the Expos of '94, the Warriors of this year, and then the '07 Patriots. The weird stat came out after the Warriors lost, and that was that the teams with the most wins in each of the Big 4 league histories have now did not win the championship. Why is that? Is there anything that we can point to with this? Is there anything that explains it? Or is it, when you consider that the winningest teams now come from '07, 2015, 1996, and 2001, that parity is just higher in sports, so that's a big part of the reason, or is there...
I don't think there's anything you can point to. I think it's just simply like that's what sports is. Like that's the difference between a regular season and the playoffs. Like, this is where I think your soccer argument kind of comes into play with like the Premier League and stuff like that, where there actually is an emphasis on the regular season. There is
Because
you are
that's
the
all there
champion
is.
when you win the regular season, whereas with American sports, everybody loves the playoffs. Everybody loves the Cinderella story. Well, this is what happens when you ask for that: is you're making probably the best team have to continue to be the best team, for another stretch, and now you look at these. I mean, baseball is the only sport where you really don't have it, where a significant amount of teams make it. I mean, half the NBA teams make the playoffs, half the NHL teams make the playoffs. I mean, upsets are bound to happen. That's why it's so hard to win. So, is it a weird stat? Yes, but I think it makes a ton of sense and fits exactly what you're looking for. It's giving every team a chance to win, and it also gives those teams. I mean, think about for the English Premier League, like let's say, and again, this is where my lack of soccer knowledge is going to come, but the best player, whoever it is out for the season, but technically would be able to come back like near the end of the season. Well, if there was an actual playoff, that team would have a chance to win, and instead, the whole thing's gone. It's done with. You have nothing really to play for at that point, outside of whatever that whole weird thing is of being top three and bottom three or whatever it is. So I think that's all you can really chalk it up to, is this is what we asked for in sports, and now we get these weird stats that happen where the greatest teams in each sport never actually won their title.
Matt, I have a really interesting question for you.
Ooh, lay it on me.
What top four, what league of the major four here would be the most interesting to watch in a home and home only format?
Ooh.
And I will allow you, obviously, all of the professional leagues that here have 32 teams. So I'll allow you to take it down to 20 teams.
Okay.
So everybody plays 38 games.
I think baseball has to be eliminated out of that, right? I mean, just with pitching rotations and things of that nature, I guess if you're only going to have...
Yeah, you're taking baseball from 162 down to 38.
That's a huge drop. I'd probably... Man, that is really tough. I'd probably say football. I'd say the NFL, because the NFL, not every team plays every team every year.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole thing makes it, you end up not seeing a team for 4 or 5 years. And so I feel like you don't necessarily always get the best, like if a team goes 13-3, yeah, that could be the case because they're playing, maybe last year, and that's why parity has been such a thing in the NFL, that you see teams go from last to first so quickly that, say last year, for example, Bears finished last in the NFC North, so this year they're going to be playing all the teams that finished last in the NFC in their respective divisions. Mm-hmm. So it's you have an opportunity to be better because that's the way they set up their scheduling and their system. So I think if you had a chance that every team, you get a home and home with each team, I think there's a greater chance to truly see in the NFL what teams are elite and what teams are not. I really feel there wouldn't be so much middle ground. You wouldn't have these teams that are hovering around 500. I think you're going to have teams that are really good and teams that are really bad.
For sure. So, Ben, do you have a comment on that, or?
No, what Matt said kind of sums it up, I think.
Good deal. Yeah, I don't know. I thought of the question, but I really don't have an answer for it because I'm not sure offhand, but that's all right. So, all right, good list. We hadn't done a list in a while, and I know this one went a little bit longer than we'd like it to, but it needed to be talked about because the Warriors made it happen for us last night. So thank you to Golden State for giving us a topic tonight. Again, congratulations to Cleveland. You're not the sports dumpster fire anymore. That belongs really to the Minnesota people who haven't seen a title since '91. So start rooting against them. And Ben, we'll go to you first with a closing thought on this list.
There's a ton of teams on this that could have been on this list. Just reiterating what I said earlier, I think, if you listen to it and you go, how did this team make it and not that team, I can promise you that team that you were probably thinking of probably was on our initial list, and it was hard to cut it to 10. This was actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
For sure. Matt, any closing thought?
To the Portland Trailblazers, Phoenix Suns, Seattle Supersonics, rest in peace, and the Utah Jazz. I'd like to apologize to you and your fan bases for Michael Jeffrey Jordan's decision to ruin your lives in the 90s, and for that, I apologize.
For sure. Good stuff. So, as always, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe, tell people. Word of mouth is awesome. We are recording this on Monday, releasing it on Wednesday. So hopefully, go USA. Hopefully, U.S. beats Argentina on Tuesday, and we'll have some of that to talk about next week. But be sure to listen in next week when we really kind of are hitting a lull in actual sports. It's really just baseball now, and we're gearing up for football, and hockey and basketball do their off-season things. So going to slow down a little bit, but we'll have some good stuff, and we'll talk some Thrones next week. We got a lot of Thrones thoughts here from the three of us, and I think what's great about the Thrones talks we'll have here, none of us have read the books. Matt, you haven't read the books, correct?
Nope, no book reading.
And you're the most likely of the three of us to have read those books. So so we'll have some interesting discussion there. So for Ben Russo and Matt Urick, I'm Scott Sternal. Thanks so much for listening. And again, be sure to subscribe on iTunes. Have a great rest of your week.